right, hello 14ers, welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is November 4th, 2019, as we are watching and praying and seeking him out in the countdown to his escaping of the bride. That's right. Today, guys, we're going to have some fun. We're going to do some digging as we usually do, and we are going to put some things together just to show. I mean, it was something that came across as I don't know, somebody had sent a video of something, and this wasn't related to it, but it ended up popping in the feed, and it was a Chuck Missler video. He's gone to be with the Lord now, I think in 2014, maybe a little bit earlier, but I think it was 2014. And oh yeah, he's definitely up there with the Lord. But I'm going to show you, we're going to show today the understanding that has been revealed compared to the understanding that was thought to be understood, which would make it not quite understanding, right? You know, it's one of those things. Up till that time, is it because I'm so special? No. For some reason, this ministry, the Lord is using us to share and to come to this understanding. I don't know how to explain it. The scriptures explain it for us. We just show it, right? That's all we can do. And we share it with anybody who's willing to listen, and anybody the Lord brings here to see it. You know, I just finished a long email, well, fairly long email with links in it and everything, with somebody new that had just come to the ministry, was looking for these links, which videos to watch. And, you know, I think what I'll do is I'll put together another playlist that'll have maybe 4 videos in it. So anybody that's watching this that's new, here's what I would recommend you watch first. Scroll down, and watch this one first. A look at the Gospels like never before. You must have that understanding first. That is what reveals. And you're going to see, I don't know if I start it where Chuck Missler talks about that, but he doesn't really talk about it, but he mentions the fact that he says, you know, a lot of people will say that the discourse is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And he says Luke isn't really the discourse. You know, it's something else. You see, Chuck Missler had that right, but he never understood what it was. All right? Nobody has understood what it was. Anybody that we've come across, anybody in all of our years and since Ministry Revealed, in the last couple of years, in all of our studies prior to getting this understanding, nobody's ever fully understood. We know Mark speaks to the, Matthew speaks to Judah or the Jews. We know Mark speaks to the Gentiles, and they'll tell you that Luke speaks to the Gentiles. Those haven't been a mystery to understand them like that. But what was the difference between Mark and Luke? And when you understand that the difference, that Luke is speaking to the bride and a group chosen from that portion that will work during seals, you'll wake up to so much more understanding. And you'll see those differences in how they're speaking in relation to those different groups to the end times. All right, that is what's been revealed here in this ministry. And it starts first with knowing who the Gospels are speaking to and being able to see it for yourself. The second one I recommend people watch is this awesome one right here called Revealed in the Robe. Okay, this video shows and explains why Jesus in the book of Matthew had a scarlet robe at his crucifixion. In Mark, he had a purple robe. In Luke, he had a gorgeous robe. And in John, he had a purple robe, but it wasn't the same number of purple as it was in Mark. And it's all revealed when you understand who the Gospels are speaking to. This is an awesome video to just show you without a doubt what that is. So that would be the second video. And then the third video would be this one right here, called The Differences and the Truth. You must understand, once you understand who the Gospels are speaking to, you need to understand that this all doesn't fit. You know, everybody, just about everybody here has wondered at some point, how does this all fit? How does all of this tribulation possibly fit in a 7-year time frame? Well, it doesn't. Okay? The portion for the church fits into a 7-year time frame, but then there's a time of Jacob's trouble, which is another 7-year time frame. The seals are for the church that was left behind, the sleeping church, which is the majority of the church, the 90% of the church, and the time of Jacob's trouble is trumpets. All right, so this is the third one I recommend people to watch. The fourth one I recommend to watch is this one here called Why the Summary. This was an awesome video. There's study notes in it, and it shows portions of major revelations that were revealed here in this ministry. All right, major revelations that if we were able to get it out to bigger names and they could sit down and take the time to understand what's been revealed here in this ministry, it would change the course of end time understanding for the entire church. And I'm not saying that lightly. Not lightly at all. They are drastically important. But we know, unfortunately, everybody is being taught from Matthew 24. They know that Matthew is to Judah, yet they keep teaching you from Judah. Isn't that crazy? I even heard from people that Uncle Jimmy had told me that when he had spoken to people, and you go to our website, which we also promote, right? We also say go to our website, ministryrevealed.com. This is our link to the GoFundMe. This is our PayPal to help support the ministry. You go to the website, and you'll see on the front page as you scroll down, it has the Lord's Prayer on it. But the Lord's Prayer doesn't have the end of the Lord's Prayer that everybody knows, right? Everybody knows that it ends, what is it? I don't even say it anymore. I haven't said it in like at least a year and a half. But it's the last verse or two of the Lord's Prayer in the book of Matthew. You see, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. It says in heaven as it is on earth, or vice versa in Matthew compared to Luke. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Okay, that's where Luke's ends. But Matthew says, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Why does Matthew have that addition? And you see that Uncle Jimmy that you'll see, that's his name in the forum on the website. He had said that somebody had told him we have that because we're a cult. You see, it's just craziness. Why? Because everybody has been taught from the book of Matthew their whole life. All things end times have been taught 98%, 95% from the book of Matthew. Because it wasn't understood who Mark and who Luke were speaking to. And once you understand it, you understand there's a reason why there's a Lord's Prayer in the Gospel of Luke. Maybe you want to start saying that one. All right? But I believe the reason, for example, why we've all been taught that one is because the Lord always wanted us to pray for the Jews. And in this roundabout way, it's gotten everybody praying for the Jews. But people thought we were crazy that we were purposely leaving it out because we didn't want to say that. No, it's because it's talking about it in the Gospel of Luke. Luke is to the bride. All right? And you'll understand that from those first two videos. Then you'll understand the truth of the 14 years, the 2 sets of 7. Like I said, that long email I put out, I responded to somebody new today with a greater detail because there was confusion with bride and the 144,000. Again, because everybody is taught that the bride is the Church of Philadelphia, the 144,000. No, it's not true. The bride is from among all the churches. And the 144,000 are those who worked during the time of trumpets. So I gave a detailed information of that email of breaking that down and gave her these videos that I'm showing you now. And you see, so this would have been the fourth one I recommend. And this one would be the fifth one. Because a lot of people outside of this ministry don't realize that Israel is not truly they believe Israel is 71, and it's not true. If Israel was 71, all end time scriptures that tell us it's 70 years for the generation, and that these things would begin in the 70th and after the 70th, in the 70th and after the 70th, if that were the case, what do? We prove here that Israel is now in their 70th, and it related to them having formed a government. So they weren't even official, even in the Lord's eyes. Remember, Jesus, he will carry the government on his shoulders. You see, a nation is not recognized without its government. Oh, you can own the plot of land, you can have a group of people, but if you don't have a government, you're not really a nation. All right? So you'll understand that in this video. Those are the 5 starting videos I would recommend everybody to watch that hasn't watched them yet. All right, to understand how we've gotten to where we're at. Okay, why we thought last year was the time. Because Israel was still in the 70th. And in the spring of this year, it turned 71. We went, what do we do? You know, I didn't want to bring up verses anymore because I'm like, that says 70 years. Okay, you'll see a little bit of that today. And we're going to bring so much more clarity to a lot of these points with you today. And we haven't spent a lot of time. And I'm not saying we're going to spend all the time today. We're going to spend a piece of the time today in the book of Psalms. We know the Psalms have so much. There's years to chapters that relate in the book of Psalms. We've talked about it before, but I'll go into it with a little bit more detail, and you're going to see. You know, God is so good. I love the way the Spirit works, because I spent a little part of the morning saying, all right, you know, I've told you before, I don't really watch much of other people's videos. I don't recommend once you have understanding here that you go watch too much of the others. But I mean, it's totally up to you, because you can discern things from it. But if you don't have a good grasp on the understanding of the truth that's revealed here, when you go watch others, it'll confuse what you've started understanding. For example, the 144,000 being at the beginning, and the rapture being at the beginning. All right, once you understand and you got a grip, then you can watch other people's videos and get a taste, get little bits and pieces that you can pull out from there. So I hadn't done it for a little while, and one of the last ones I did that was a big deal, a huge deal, was there was a brother that I had watched, and he was talking about Hosea and Zechariah, and you know, being some of the minor prophets. And when he showed Zechariah and it had 14 chapters, and he showed Hosea and I saw 14 chapters, I went and looked, and the only 2 books that have 14 chapters in the Old Testament, I think in any of them, are Hosea and Zechariah, and one speaks to Judah and one speaks to the Gentile church. And I said, wait a second. And so I started digging into it. Now we've had so much in the last year and a half, at least, since that was revealed. So today I thought I would do that with just looking around, and somebody had sent a link, and it brought up this feed from Chuck Missler that caught my attention. And this is what caught my attention. Behold a White Horse, Session 2, Chuck Missler. It says premiered October 2nd. Well, obviously this is an old one from Chuck Missler because he's passed, but Koinonia House, had reposted. And look at how many views, right? And it's completely confusing. I love Chuck Missler. They taught the way they understood, guys. But more has been revealed in these end times. More has been revealed, and the scriptures prove it to be true. It doesn't mean that a portion of the understanding in Daniel 9 wasn't part of the count. But when I show you, when you see what they show and how they explain it, and the way we show it, and this is only part of what we're going to do today, not a lot. You're going to see that. I mean, you just shake your head and you say, how on earth could we have ever looked at it that way before? All right? You have one calculation, and then the rest are, well, one calculation is 400 and some years off. The next one is 38 years. The next one's a 2,000-year gap, and then there's a 7-year. We can show you Daniel chapter 9 here, 25 through, 24 through 27, that the whole thing reveals 14 years. The 2 sets of 7. One is like just saying this, right? But then you have the 7, which is Jacob's trouble. It's literally the 14 years. And you'll see these things as we go through this, that they didn't understand then, and most churches and those that teach end times do not understand. You're going to hear him talk about, and many of you will already understand them because we've talked about them before. Like this one here, right? The comma and. That separation of periods of time here, but that can be added as a whole. So this is one set of time, and this is another set of time. All right? And you'll see when he talks about this time, times, and half a time that he refers to as 3.5 years, which it's not. All right? We've shown that it's 2.5 years. So, but again, for those that have been watching for a while, we're not going to get all tied up doing a whole bunch of Daniel 9 stuff. It'll just be a part of it because of where it's going to lead us when he starts talking about this term that he uses, okay? So let's get going. Let's start showing here. Daniel, okay, right here.
It was the decree of Artaxerxes Longimanus on March 14th to 445 that gave them the authority to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. Don't get that confused with the temple. There are actually 4 different decrees. That's the one on the city of Jerusalem. The question is, when did the Messiah allow himself to be presented as a king? And when you study your Gospels, you realize he didn't allow it except on one day where he arranges it. Okay, that turns out to be at what we call the triumphal entry.
All right, see that? Maybe I'll let him talk a little bit and then we'll cover this.
April 6th. Now what makes this provocative is, and incidentally, notice that all of this was part of the Old Testament. It was translated into Greek 3 centuries before Christ's ministry. So get that in perspective. This is documented in the Septuagint translation in Greek that was done in 285 BC. Well, it turns out when you go through the arithmetic, the 445 or 32, and you go through the difference in days and make the correction for the leap years, the astonishing discovery is that it amounts to 173,880 days. In other words...
All right. This has a whole bunch in it for us, guys. A whole bunch in it. And maybe... I think I had it starting where he's going to talk here. You see, when did Messiah come in, all right? Watch this. Let's listen a bit more.
What was Gabriel's margin for error? 0. He's telling Daniel the precise day, 300 years in advance, of when Jesus would present himself as the king. Now the shocker is Jesus held him accountable for that. Let's take a look what happened in Luke 19. Speaking of Jesus riding that donkey in, he says, when he was near, he beheld the city. And what does Jesus do? He wept over it. And Jesus says, if thou hadst known, even thou at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace. But now they're hid from thine eyes. It's at that point he declares blindness on the nation. They blew it. And because of that, they'll be blinded in a sense. And we'll see about that. This thy day. That's quoting Psalm 118, which we use generally.
All right. You ready, guys? All right, let me just line it up a bit here for us. All right. So remember what he said there, right? So he's talking about when this decree went out, that first decree to rebuild Jerusalem. When you take Daniel 9:24, they take the 7 weeks they call 7 years, and they take the 60 and 2, the 62, and they call it 62, and they multiply it. The one guy realized that they should have been doing it by 360 because of Old Testament, how God was counting, just like he'll do in the Jacob's trouble portion, which is trumpets, and he multiplies that. You adjust for the difference in the times, the difference in between here from March 14th when it was decreed to April 6th, that is triumphal entry, and you adjust for the leap years, and it's 173,880 days. And where does it end up? At his triumphal entry. as declaration like he's the Messiah. That's the only place where it was declared at that point, right? And when was it? April 6th, 32 AD. Let me show you something. Remember our 14 years? The revelation of the 14-year understanding? We say from the end, so we're at the end of 2019. We're waiting on this day. It's in the fall season. Sometime this fall season, I believe, based on Simeon, from Luke chapter 2 and from Acts 15, that we're looking in this 24th of November as the possibility now. That is the high watch for this guy speaking, all right, from what we've discerned from Scripture. Because why? We know we're in the 70th year. And maybe I should show that first to remind people we are in the 70th year. Psalms 90 verse 10 is our nutshell, is the what do they call it? The macro, the way up high looking down, the nutshell of it all in one verse. The days of our years are 70, meaning 70 years. And if by reason of strength, meaning if you have the strength and the fortitude to make it through, they will be 80 years. And guys, I don't know if you know this, but if you look up the global population for the average age, the average lifespan of man on earth, do you know what it is right now? It just so happens to be 70 years. 70 point something years, I believe it is. Okay? Very, very interesting. It equals the same thing as where we are now in that fig tree generation. You understand, for Israel to have come back after almost 2,000 years, 1,800 and some odd years, 1,900 years and change, for Israel to have finally come back and be back in its nation, and that in the 70th year from where we are right now equals the 14 years to the Lord's return after 13 and the cleanup in the 14th year, equals the entire thing right now where we are from 70, and by strength, the fortitude and the strength and power for 10 more years. And yet is your strength. Okay? So you might have the strength to do it, but your strength is what? Labor, sorrow, pain, travail, trouble. And the word sorrow, affliction, trouble, sorrow. Idolatry is in there. Unrighteous vanity, wickedness. And then you have, so you got what? 10 years. For it is soon, a short period of time. So we call that about 6 months, a short period of time, a few months. That would give about 10 and a half years, and then cut off and we fly away. Who's this fly away? This is Revelation 12:14 from Judah. This is not talking about the bride. This is the flying away of Revelation 12:14, when they will fly on the wings of an eagle into the wilderness for 3.5 years, giving us what? 10 years, half a year, 3.5 years, 14 years. 14 years. And we're in 70 right now. You see, it equals where we are. It equals where we are. And what did I say? When does when does Yeshua return, feet down on the Mount of Olives? At the end. See, it starts in the fall of 31, but it will end in the fall of 32. So I call it the end of 31 is in the fall of 32. I call it the end of 31 because it begins in 31. But when he returns feet down, it's really the fall of 32. You get it? Because it will start in 31, according to our calendar, okay? I'm showing this as according to our Gregorian calendar, okay? So from the fall of 31 to the fall of 32, this is the fall of 32 when the Lord will return feet down on the Mount of Olives. And when you see at the seventh trumpet, it is now the time of rest. You see? That will be the seventh trumpet, is that final year after he's put his feet down. And it's the year after that is then the rest and the restoration of the tribes. Okay? So from the fall of 32 to the fall of 33 is the seventh trumpet. Okay? So where does it end? Fall of 32, when the Lord returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives. When did this equal in the Artaxerxes count? Doing the count like this? Jesus' triumphal entry, April 6, 32 AD. So when was Jesus crucified? In 32 AD. What's 2,000 years later? 2032. We're told that he would return as he left. And he'll return as he left, feet down on the Mount of Olives. Well, do you remember we were just saying how Hosea is that portion to the Gentile church, right? We go to chapter 6, and what do we see? He has torn, he has smitten us, let us return to the Lord. They're talking now at the end time frame of the sixth seal. Okay? The end of the sixth seal, we've been torn, we've been beaten, we've been smitten and bind up. Let us return to the Lord. After 2 days, will he revive us? Okay? After 2 days, will he revive us? What is this talking about? This is talking about the 2,000 years. When will these guys get revived? After 2 days, after the 2,000 years. When we look at this, see, triumphal entry, 2,000 years is what? Fall of 32, of 2032. He was crucified in the spring of 32, and after 2 days, 2,000 years, the fall of 2032, when he returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives. Do you follow, guys? Precisely creation. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. 7,000th is rest. Work 6 days. The 7th is rest. 6 years of seals. The 7th is rest. 6 years of trumpets. The Lord returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives, and the 7th is rest. But now he is here, remaining feet down on the Mount of Olives, cleaning up, whooping, whatever he's doing there. Okay? The 7th trumpet. 6 years, 7th rest. 6 years, 7th rest. What's taken place during these 7 years? Israel is no longer in their land. Israel is the first thing about to get removed. We can watch Paul Begley. We can watch all of these people. Israel is protected and Israel will not be taken out. They all think the temple is about to be built first. And they've got their oils and they've got this ready and they got that ready. And they think Israel is about to rebuild their temple. And in 3.5 years, the Antichrist is going to come in and step in and take it over. Wrong. 7 years they will be removed from the land. Why? Because they've taken control of it since, what was it, 67? So they're 52 years they owned it. And how many Shemitas of rest did they give it? 0. They're now going to be held accountable to allow the land to rest for 7 years. And they will rebuild the city and the streets after it's being destroyed here in late 2019 into early 2020. It will be destroyed. They will all flee. We've shown it before. Okay? So now let's go back. So it was the point of showing, look, 32. So the Artaxerxes count, nothing to do with me. They did this count, whoever this professor was that did this count, and where did it go? 32. What have we been telling you for a year and a half? 32. Right? Did we think last year? And this is what I was making a point of in the comment I sent, or in the email I sent, was to say that yes, we believed it was last year, but why did we believe last year? Because we've been all duped to believe that Israel turned 70 last year. And we know they cannot turn 71 without having been attacked and the tribulation beginning. Okay? So now we've got that covered. Now what about, actually, you know what? Okay, so we've got this covered. And he goes on to talk in Daniel 9. Like I said, I won't spend a lot in Daniel 9. But you see, it's 70 weeks. And they call it 7 times 7. There's an end time understanding. As much as that count worked, this is what they show you guys. This is what they'll tell you. Okay? So they'll take the 7 weeks and call it 7 times the 62, and they'll say it's what, 483 weeks. Okay? So, like I said at the beginning, they take that and they say, okay, that was 483 years before it happened. Okay, so 483 years. Then they the decree came. Okay, how do they account for the fact that when Jesus came, he was already there? Jerusalem was already there. It didn't start in 70 AD or in 0. Jerusalem was already there. So right off the bat, the count is it's bizarre. It's very bizarre. But they'll take the 7 and the 49, they'll say, okay, and Messiah will be there for this time, and then after those 62, Messiah is cut off. Okay, they'll say that's when Messiah came in. That's what he's relating now to the triumphal entry. And he says, then because of their blindness, the people of the prince that was Rome coming are going to destroy the city and the sanctuary. Okay? They're going to destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, when did this happen? 38 years later. You see, this 483 count, I believe that number is, they claimed it to restoring Israel. But do you follow? The decree to restore, the commandment to restore Jerusalem equaled Messiah going to crucifixion. See? It wasn't about restoring the city and the streets. And then you've got the 38 years in between from his death until the time that they actually came and destroyed it. And then they'll tell you, this is the final week of 7 years. And he says that this is now relating to the Messiah. The Messiah is going to come. The temple will be built. It's going to be the Messiah that declares the peace deal. And then in the middle of the peace deal, he's going to step in and destroy it, which is about 2,000 years later. Why did any of us believe this? Because they got some crazy fancy words, right? It seems to look good when you look at these things, but it 487 years, and then because of it, it'll be 38 more years. But this had nothing to do with rebuilding the city and the streets. It was to Jesus, and you know what I mean? Nothing to repairing it. And then when Jesus is cut off after that time, then 38 years later, these guys will come, and then they'll call it a gap of about 2,000 years until the Antichrist comes and will make the decree for the peace deal. He's going to make the covenant or confirm the covenant. And in the middle of the covenant, for the overspreading of abominations. What? For the overspreading of abominations. So the abominations are taking place in there, and they're saying that it's the Antichrist who's coming in to end the abominations of desolation that are going on in it. Does that make sense to anybody? It's the Antichrist or Satan that's doing the abominations, who's caused the desolations that make things, the abominations that make things desolate. How is this him going in and destroying what he's done? You see, because they don't understand. 70 weeks is 70 years. We are in the 70th. And what happens in the 70th? There's going to be a commandment to restore Jerusalem. Why? Because they've got to be destroyed first before a decree can go out to rebuild it. And when that decree goes out to rebuild it unto Messiah the Prince, 7 years, okay, weeks of years, 70 weeks is 70 years. Here we are in the 70th year. They're going to be destroyed. And the decree is going to be sent out for them to allow to be rebuilding the city and the streets. But before they get a chance to start, the red horse rider, the tribulation will have begun. And there will be 7 years, 7 weeks, 7 years, which is this time we've been showing you of seals, where they will not inhabit the land. It will be in its time of rest for 7 years. And when those 7 years are over, what do we know? When those 7 years are over, the 7 years of seals are over, the Lord comes on Mount Zion. We'll touch on these things based on these things that Chuck Missler is talking to us about. Okay? And during the 3.5 years, they'll rebuild the city and the streets. Then Messiah is going to be cut off. He's going to leave with Zion. He's going to fly away with those who are in the those who are going to the wilderness, or he's going somewhere else, but he's leaving, I would say maybe with them. Okay? But we don't know that exactly for sure. But we have in the 70th, 7 years, 3.5 years. Remember Psalms 90 and 10? 7 and 3.5 puts us at 10.5. After those 3.5 of trumpets, Messiah cuts himself off. Satan has come down, the people of the prince that shall come. They're going to destroy the city and the sanctuary. There's going to be a flood. Do you recognize Revelation 12, verse 14? Satan is going to, after being cast out, he's going to go after them with a flood. And he's going to make war with the 2 witnesses. And that will go on until the end of what? The 6th trumpet, when the war is over. And who comes at the end of the 6th trumpet, the 7th trumpet? Jesus returns to confirm a covenant that he had made at the beginning, at the end of seals, beginning of trumpets. And he is going to cause, Jesus having returned feet down, is going to cause the sacrifice and the oblations that were going on in it to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he's going to make it desolate. You see? Even until the consummation is determined, and that poured out upon the desolate. So what do we have? You have in the 70th week, or 70 years, you have 7, 3.5, a period of time here, and then 1 more week. You see, 1 more week. So if this is 1 more week, which it is, we had 10.5, we have 1. What are we missing in here after he's cut off? We're missing a period of time of 2.5 weeks, right? 2.5 years. So what is that 2.5 years?
32, and you go through the difference in days and make the correction for the leap years. The astonishing discovery is that it amounts to 173,880 days. In other words, what was Gabriel's margin for error? 0. He's telling Daniel the precise day, 11:25, that they're blinded in part until...
Okay. What I was going to say is, I was trying to remember if I had a note on it or not. But what it was about, he ends up saying about Daniel 12, when Daniel then says, time times and half a time. Time times and a half. And he calls it 3.5 years. It's not. It's this 2.5 years. And what this equals is the 14 years. All right? We've talked about that. We've got a video on it as well. But now I want to put the focus, okay? We've covered that a lot of times with Daniel. But I just wanted to show this kind of craziness of how it's been understood. And it's only because the understanding hadn't been revealed yet. But now that it's revealed, now that it's come about, we need to get this out to as many people as we can. And I know many of you are sharing it wherever you can. And we need to keep doing it. All right? We need to keep doing it. It is the understanding. There is very little time left. We need to get it out as much as we can. Okay? So let's share these videos with everybody. You know, I always forget to say those thumbs up. You know, that'll get their algorithm, I guess, to get people in their feeds more. I always forget that. And I hear people talk about it all the time. But now watch this. Now we're going to look at that point where he's talking about this relation in Daniel chapter 9, where he's relating it now into that portion of Luke 19. Okay, so we'll listen to this for a couple minutes here again.
118, which we use generally. Rejoice, and this is the day the Lord hath made, we'll rejoice and be glad in it. You can apply that anywhere, but it actually is referring to this particular event.
Okay, so we saw that in the earlier portion. I started it at the late portion, but we saw that a little earlier. So what is he saying here? Check this out. He's saying Luke chapter 19, at Jesus's triumphal entry, okay, in particular, here we go, when he's coming now near, okay, he's taking that grouping of words, saying, for the day shall come upon that thine enemies, excuse me, where is it? In this thy day, okay, in this thy day, he's taking this portion and he's showing that where it relates into Christ's coming. You see, at his first coming, this ministry reveals these understandings in his end time revealing, in the scriptures being revealed in the end time understanding. When we see this, what have we shown here that this explains? He's showing it was the relation to when Jesus came the first time, and the Artaxerxes and the count. But we also know that Daniel is clearly giving us the end time, another layer in that onion peeled back, if you will. All right, a deeper layer in peeling back that onion. And we know that Daniel 9 is revealing to us in the 70th year, the 14 years begin. Over and over again. And so now Chuck is telling us that it also relates to this time when the Lord will first come. That will begin what? We know that it will begin the end time. The time of tribulation is coming. Okay? And what does he say? He's talking about this right here. Luke 19 verse 41, and we'll go through 44. And when he was come near, okay, when he approached, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou had known, even thou at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto your peace. Okay, there was no peace back then for them anyways, but now are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon you that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee round about in on every side. Sound familiar? Unto thy peace, and they will cast a trench on every side. You see, I want to make sure I'm following my little thing here. Okay? What do we know in Jeremiah chapter 4? The lion has come up from the thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. He has gone forth from his place to make thy land desolate, and thy cities shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. And it shall come to pass, verse 9 and 10, and it shall come to pass that at that day, saith the Lord, that the heart of the king shall perish, and the heart of the princes, and the priests shall be astonished, and the prophets shall wonder. Then said I, Lord God, surely thou hast greatly deceived this people in Jerusalem, saying, you shall have peace, whereas the sword reacheth unto the soul. Where do we hear these things, guys? How about Ezekiel 4? Thou also, son of man, take thee a tile and lay it before thee, and portray upon it the city, even Jerusalem, and lay siege against it, and build a fort against it, and cast a mount against it. Set the camp also against it. Set thy battering rams against it round about. Moreover, take thou unto thee an iron pan, and set it as a wall between thee and the city, and against thy face, set thy face against it, and it shall be besieged, and thou shalt lay siege to it. This shall be a sign unto the house of Israel. We've covered these things before. What does this mean? Right? What's this portion of time talking about here that they'll be compassed about? It's Luke 21. Right? We know that what? We talked about it in the last video and a couple videos prior to that. From 1 Thessalonians 5:3 to Luke 24. Right? These things that must first come to pass. But we know at the end of Luke, it says, but we want to be accounted worthy, watching and praying to escape all of these things. All of what things? All of these things spoken of here in Luke. And what do we know this portion of time is? Just like Chuck Missler had said, people misunderstand the discourse of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, that Luke's is relating to all the discourse of Matthew and Mark. It's not. It's not. It's relating to the 40 days, but he gives us a glimpse of those things that he said unto them. Right? Luke jumping in with his own words, saying what were said to Mark and to Matthew. Nation shall rise against nation, great earthquakes, famines, and so forth. But Luke says, but before all these. So, but before all these, what will take place is they will deliver you up into prisons and synagogues and rulers and everything. Okay? And some of you, they shall be put to death. This portion of all this stuff that's right here from but before all these is a 40-day portion of time. It is not the tribulation portion, the direct that will affect the whole earth yet. Once this portion is over, it will then be nation against the whole earth. Israel will be attacked, and the whole nations and all nations will be in upheaval, which Ken Peters obviously misunderstood his time. All right? But it's coming. He's not far off. And here it is. Luke 21 verse 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Okay? For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. So what is it that causes these people in the but before all these to suddenly be captured and being brought to prisons and all these things? Well, we talked about that in the last video, right? What it is the commotion of the escape that happened first. The Lord then shows up in the midst of those people during that time of the 40 days. And these are those things that must come to pass first. And it will begin with this before the red horse rider, which is nation against nation, which is where Mark and Matthew's discourse really begin, with nation against nation that shall come upon them. All right? That is what's coming. And you see this portion that we're talking about, armies compassed about. Why isn't anybody concerned that Israel is about to be attacked? And everybody thinks, let's keep inviting the people into Israel and let's keep putting these things toward the temple. Well, first of all, they're not going to believe us. They're not going to believe us anyways. All right. But what is the key that the Christian pastors haven't understood? They haven't understood first who the Gospels are speaking to. You follow? That's the point. If they had understood who the Gospels were speaking to, they would know there's this portion of time coming that will be the kickoff to the tribulation. And when this kickoff period of time comes to the tail end of it, Jerusalem will be surrounded. But the Lord will leave. That 40-day period of time will be done. The Lord will leave. Then, about probably another 10 days, the Holy Spirit is still coming again. And after those 10 days, the Holy Spirit gives them that ability. Israel will be attacked shortly after that. And I believe that'll be in January of 2020. Okay? Now, how does this tie in in relation to Psalms and what he's talking about with the triumphal entry over Jerusalem. Well, this is what he said. He said, in this thy day. That's the portion he related to Psalms 118. Now, for some of you that are new, you're going to say, what is going on here? Okay, but for those that have been watching for a little while, what have we been saying in this ministry for months and months and months now? Okay, we know there is a type and shadow in the Psalms from Psalms 18 to 32, 33, and Psalms 118 to 132, 133. We've known it. We've shown bits and pieces over and over again. Why? Because in Luke chapter 24, at the end of Luke, Jesus expounded upon them the law in Moses, the things about him in the law of Moses, the things about him in the prophets, the things about him in the Psalms. You see, that group that was taught, that was revealed these things in Luke 24, was told by Jesus these three groupings of scriptures that were things that pertain to him that must be fulfilled during this time. And what is that time type shadow? The end. The 14 years. We've talked about it before. Go read Psalms 18. There's no way that has happened yet. The nostrils and the volcanic eruption and the destruction and the earth ripping open, that you're going to see the foundations of the earth. And then it says, and the Lord came down upon the wings of a cherubim. Yes, and he did deliver me and set me in a large place. You see, what I call Psalms 18, I call it like right between these two sentences in Psalms 118. Psalms 18 is one viewpoint, Psalms 118 is the other. It's like Hosea is one viewpoint from the Gentiles, from the church, and the other, not in the Gentiles, we can say the church, and the other one is from the Gentiles of the Jews, of Judah. All right? That is what's going on. Same like Psalms 118 to Psalms 18. Same type of thing. So what is he talking about? Well, here it is. All nations compassed me about. Here we go again. Okay? All the nations are about to compass them about. And what are we looking for? Here it is. Psalms 118 verse 24. This is what Chuck's talking about in relation to what? Luke chapter 19. When Jesus will return, come near to Jerusalem. Remember when he returns, even in the type and shadow of the 40 days at his resurrection? All right, the Psalms 19 is just prior to, and then at his resurrection, there's your 40 days. So this is when he's coming near. And Chuck says, this is the time, this is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And what are we talking about? Psalms 118. Do you understand? It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. Well, what do you mean? If it hasn't happened yet, what's this portion in Luke talking about with Luke 19? Do you follow? It's talking right here, in this thy day, when the Lord is coming near to Jerusalem again in the 40 days. It's the type and shadow of that beginning time frame of the 40 days. Just like he said in Luke, when you know who the Gospels are speaking to, when he said in Luke chapter 11, that as Jonah was 40 days to Nineveh, so shall the Son of Man be. That is the end of Luke 24 going into Acts chapter 1. And what will happen? But now they are hid from thine eyes. See, if you had known what was unto thy peace, but now is over. There's that peace again. It's that same peace from Thessalonians. It's that same peace when the Lord stood in the midst of them in Luke 24, all relating to that time frame of the 40 days. But look at this. But now they are hid from thine eyes. Why is it now hid? Was it hid from all the Jews' eyes? You think back when Jesus at this time here, was it all hid from their eyes? Did all the apostles, when Jesus finished and the 40 days was starting, did all the apostles go out and only teach to the Gentiles because none of the Jews saw it? No, most of the people that were saved were Jews back then. So what is this talking about? It's talking about a future time. When this time frame is over that we're still in, and the bride is taken out, and the Lord is here, however he's showing himself and revealing and doing these things with the disciples and the apostles for this 40-day time frame. When that time starts, the Jews will be blinded. There is no more in part. They will be blinded. Why? Because it is the time of the Gentiles. It will now go on until what? The fullness of the Gentiles comes in. And the fullness of the Gentiles does not come in until the rapture. And after the rapture and that seventh seal of quiet for about half an hour, which we say is about 6 months, trumpets comes, and now what? Now it is their time. You see, their eyes will no longer be so hid. Got it? For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round about in on every side. And they shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children with thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. They knew not the time of their visitation. We just showed the scriptures that talk about this precise thing are the things relating to the beginning of it all. For when they shall say peace and safety, the escape will happen. The suddenly will happen. That sudden, like we showed 3 videos ago, is the escape. The destruction is the aftermath. And then, as a woman in travail, is the tribulation beginning. And what is going to happen during that time? Psalms 18. Psalms 118. One from the viewpoint of the church, and the other one in the viewpoint of Judah. This is coming, but everybody thinks it's the temple. And they knew not the time of their visitation. The word visitation, see, of their inspection, of their visitation. You see, if all of this was just relating back then, how on earth was it not till 38 years later when they were destroyed? When they were compassed in about on every side? You see, this is what's coming. He's telling them, 40 days or whatever out. Is everybody in that area going to see him? No, they won't recognize who he is. Just like people who have had visions, and not even visions, visitations, that they've claimed it was Jesus. That he came to them, it was either soup or something, and he revealed himself. Some people might think those people are crazy. But he can come. Let's not forget how we should treat others. Because what do the scriptures tell us? we know not if we were entertaining angels. It could have been angels that we were entertaining and they looked just like the rest of us. You see? So can the Lord be here, and those that he's revealing himself to at that point for that purpose will know who he is? Absolutely. Okay? Let's look at this visitation now. All of these things tying into this time frame, that this connection from Daniel to Psalms 118 and Luke 19 are talking about. Confirming for us that 18 and 118 have not yet happened, but must come to pass. Okay? We covered that there. Here's the word, okay? Here's that word visitation. Okay? Visitation from Luke 44. So they knew not the time of their visitation. It comes up 4 times. We'll look into the one. Remember, we're looking at Gospels, the book of Luke, the book of John, Psalms, these books that we understand the chapters to years to see where these things fit. Okay? We want to see where these things are applied. And look at what we have. They knew not the time of their visitation. We know this is near the beginning. We were just showing that it's when the Lord comes by and then he's telling them, look, they're going to be compassed about. And where do we find it? In Acts chapter 20. Acts chapter 20. What do we keep showing? That the book of Acts is 14 years for one, and then from 15 to 28 is another 14 years. It's just like Psalms 118 and Psalms 18. They're overlapping each other from they're just 2 different points of view. Hosea and Zechariah, they're the same time frames, just from different points of view. Different groups of people. And here we are in Acts chapter 1. It's talking about the 40 days when the Lord was there with them, and they got to make their way back to Jerusalem. They see him in the ascension. And listen to what he says. Where are we? Listen to the portion that it's talking about in verse 20. So Acts 1 verse 20. We know this is the first year time frame, right? This is right at the beginning. For it is written in the book of Psalms. Well, there we go. It is written in the book of Psalms, let his habitation be desolate. There it is again. Where? Right at the beginning. Let his habitation be desolate, and no man dwell therein. And no man, let me just highlight that one. Dwell therein. I don't like that color. Okay, and let no man dwell therein. And his bishopric let another take. Same word, see? Only shows up 4 times. So his office, his visitation, his inspection, his portion of time, let another have it. Whose portion of time? Judah. The Jews' portion of time, because they were not aware of their visitation. So let another take it, church. And let their habitation, who missed their visitation, let their habitation be desolate, and no man dwell therein. For it is written in the book of Psalms. I mean, where is this written in the book of Psalms? Psalms 69. Okay, watch this. Watch where this takes us. This is so awesome. I just love how this stuff works, guys. When you can understand these things, when you understand who the Gospels are speaking to, when you understand the truth of the 14 years, these things, these understandings, your eyes and your mind, the eyes in your mind, they do not read the scriptures the same, because the book is alive. You will see it beyond a shadow of a doubt that the book is alive. All right? So what's it talking about there in Psalms? It's talking about chapter 69 of Psalms. And of course, we have the type and shadow. It's speaking of Christ here, right? They gave gall. They gave me also gall to meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare, let it become a trap. See, what was meant for their good, for their protection, in that visitation, is now going to be blinded to them. Let it now become a trap, a snare, a noose around their necks, to ensnare like a fowler. Let their eyes be darkened, that they see not, and let their loins continually shake. Pour out thine indignation upon them, and let thy wrathful anger take hold of them. See, make their loins continually shake. Where do we see that? How about right near the beginning? Right? Luke 21, verse 25 and 26, right? We'll even just start right here. In the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear of looking after those things that are coming upon the earth. For fear of those things coming upon the earth. They're shaking, they're trembling. It's the same thing that the king's heart will fail, and the prophets and the pastors and everybody's gonna be like, oh, what's going on? Let their eyes be darkened, that they see not. There it is again. Relating to what? The beginning. This 40-day portion, this starting of things. Psalms 18, Psalms 118. This starting time frame. They will be blinded. You see, fully, because their time, it will no longer be their portion. They will be surrounded. They will be attacked. Millions, hundreds of thousands to millions will die. And people will be fleeing everywhere. And it will begin the tribulation and the time of the red horse rider at that point. And you see, this is what it's telling us here. Watch this. Pour out thine indignation upon them. Let thy wrathful anger take hold of them. Let's look at that. Okay? A burning anger. Check this out. Sore displeasure. Wrathful. Okay? What else do we have? Also comes from to be wroth. Be displeased, be wroth, and sore displeased. You want to see that we know what we're talking about here? Remember we said Zechariah? Who's this talking about? Judah. It is talking about the Jews. Oh, this is the beginning portion. This whole time frame we keep talking about. The beginning. And where does it relate to? Does it relate to Hosea? No. It relates to Zechariah, who is the portion of the Jews, right? The Lord hath been sore displeased. Let's keep going. Watch this. Verse 12, Zechariah 1 verse 12. And the angel of the Lord answered and said, O Lord of hosts, how long will you not have mercy on Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, against which you have had indignation these 70 years? Oh, there's the 70 years again. Here we are in the 70th year. The scripture pointing to the indignation and the wrath and the being sore displeased with Israel in the 70th year, to the one speaking of Judah, that Luke chapter 19, speaking about Psalms 118, confirms this time that is coming against them, of which affliction will begin, and they will get surrounded first before they're attacked. And what does it say? These 70 years. Oh, we're not done. Watch this. Zechariah 1 verse 15. I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. Okay? That are at ease, at quiet, rest, secure. For I was a little, there it is, a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. See that? I am very sore displeased. That's the exact definition of the portion of God's wrath that he was talking about. I am very sore displeased. And what does it mean? Remember this one here from 69 talking about this portion of time was about being displeased, and wrath is the primitive root. Well, look at what sore displeased literally means. You follow? These 70 years, sore displeased. I was a little displeased, but now I'm ticked. And they helped forward the affliction. The tribulation will begin, and there's your four horns. These are the ones that will scatter Jerusalem and Judah and Israel. There it is. From 69 of Psalms relating from 118 to Luke 19 on the Lord's near approach, from Chuck Missler talking to us about an incomplete understanding of Daniel chapter 9. Isn't this crazy? Let their habitation be desolate, and let none dwell in their tents. This is what I was telling you. Remember, he said in the Psalms and in the prophets, right? And in the law. Where are we? We're in the prophets and in the Psalms here today. In the prophets and in the Psalms. And what did we say? That it will remain desolate. It will remain empty for what? 7 years. It won't be until, going back to Zechariah, 7 years it'll remain empty. And in the 8th, which is the next set, the beginning of trumpets, the Lord is no longer. See, I was, and in Zechariah 1 he said I am. Why is he no longer? Why? You see, I was jealous for her. I was jealous with a great fury. But now I am returned unto Zion, the mountain of the Lord, the holy mountain it's going to be called. See, let every man his hand and his staff. And what are they going to do? Let your hands be strong, you that hear in this day. Because what's going to happen? They're now going to start rebuilding the city and the streets. All of it is connected. All of it is connected. Right? Remember I said we'll do a little bit here in the Psalms, and how we had said before that Psalms 18 hadn't happened. This portion of time, Psalms 18, Psalms 118, these things haven't happened. I believe this is that portion of time during the 40 days. There's something going on here relating to it. And then you have what? Psalms 119, this is year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? It's like saying the year 2025, that year of rest, right? Which is what? So what is the 7th year? We go back and look at this, see? It's the fall of 2025 to the fall of 2026 is the 7th year, that 7th seal, that 7th time of that 7th year of rest. Okay? So where are we? Psalms 125. All right? And what does it say? They that trust in the Lord shall be at Mount Zion. What did we just say? The rapture year, where does the rapture go? They go to Mount Zion. Where are the 144,000 going to be? Right? They're going to be on Zion with the Lamb, Revelation 14. See? What if we go to 25? Okay, we see the craziness going on in 18. We've covered this one a lot. Well, let's see even 24. 24 would be the end of the sixth seal, right? There's year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's the time frame of the sixth seal. A chapter doesn't mean it's the whole year. It could be something at the beginning of the chapter, something in the middle of the chapter, something towards the end of that chapter, of that year, I mean. Okay? And what do we see? At the end of seals, before the year of rest. So when you get to the end of the sixth seal, the seventh year is rest. So what would happen? The time of the Gentiles is finished, right? And what do we have here in Psalms 24? The earth and the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the fullness of the Gentiles. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands. They hadn't had their clean hands before. They had to clean them during the purification of the seals, in the enduring of the seals. You see, guys, this stuff is all over the place. What else can we go? Let's go into 32. No guile, forgiveness. Let's see it more clear if we go to 132. Watch this, okay? We saw 125. See? 125, that seventh year of rest, right? They that trust in the Lord shall be as in Zion. The righteous put forth their hands. See, it was a very short one. Here we go. When the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion. See, he's bringing them back into his captivity in Zion. There you go, right there in 126, which would be the first year of trumpets. Let's go to 132. When it comes to an end, look at what he says. Psalms 132, let's start in verse 5. Until I find out a place for the Lord, a habitation for the mighty God of Jacob. Lo, we heard of it at Ephrath. We found it in the fields of the wood. We will go into his tabernacles. We will worship at his footstool. Arise, O Lord, unto thy rest, thou in the ark of thy strength. The Lord has sworn in truth unto David, he will not turn from it. Of the fruit of the body will I set upon thy throne. 132 verse 14. Actually, let's start in 13. For the Lord hath chosen Zion. He has desired it for his habitation. This is my rest forever. Here will I dwell, for I have desired it. How about the final year, when this would be called the Jubilee year? See, this is when it's over. That year of rest, the Lord has chosen it. Right? It's the end of the sixth trumpet. It's the seventh year of rest. He's chosen it. It's his. It's precisely like we show here. He returns feet down in that final year, 32. He's chosen it. It's there. Well, what happens in the 33 year? It's the Jubilee. It's the restoration of each tribe into their land. So we go to 133, which is now the end of 14 years, right? This is the 15th. And what do we have? Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Verse 3, only 3 verses. As the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. You understand? The Psalms have years, have chapters that equal events within specific years. The prophets have chapters that equal specific years, and in particular Hosea and Zechariah, one to the church, one to the Jews, and many other portions and pieces which we can cover, which we've covered in the past, and we'll talk again another time, I'm sure, like Joel, for example, or like Micah has 7 chapters. It is the first 7 years. How do we know? We've covered it before, but let me show you an easy one. Let's go to chapter 7, which would be what? The end of 7 years. Here's in that 7th year. And listen to what he says. See, now their visitation's coming. Take that. There it is already. Watch this. 7 verse 11. In the day that your walls are to be built, in that day shall the decree be far removed. You see? In the time that the walls that we're talking about in Daniel 9 are to be built, the decree will have passed, will have been a long time ago. Well, that's exactly what Daniel 9 is telling us. Look at this. We're almost done. Okay, look at this. The commandment is going to go forth for them to restore Jerusalem because they will be attacked very shortly. They will be attacked, and a decree will go out to restore Jerusalem. But 7 years are going to pass. Micah, 7 chapters. And in that final and 7th year, what does it say? Now you're going to build. What's coming next is you're going to build your city and your streets. See? The streets and the wall. See, now they're going to start building the wall. When? After the 7 years of Micah. The information of the 7 years, we can discern more things in what's going to happen during the tribulation of seals. The 7 years of seals can be discerned by, with parts of it, pieces of it, can be discerned now in Micah. Can be discerned in the first 7 of Hosea. Can be discerned in the first 7 of Zechariah. Of Psalms 118 forward. In Psalms 18 forward. In the book of Acts, first 7, and then twice from 15 forward. And then again in the Gospel of John in his 21 years to 21 chapters. Every time we do this in these books, no matter where we come from, no matter what angle we come at this at, whether it be like this in Daniel, whether it be from Luke and connecting the time of the visitation, it always in each of these books that have opened unto us in their chapters to years reveal the exact same timing over and over and over and over again. If people out there would take the time, they call themselves Bereans. Let's put them on the spot and say, do you believe yourself a Berean? When you hear something like a Berean did, and they heard something, they would go see for themselves if this was true. Let's start putting people on the spot a little bit more and saying, watch this, and if you don't think it's true, show me. Show me and let's talk about it. All right, bring them to this ministry. Let them chat in the forum. Let them send an email to me. And let's explain. Let's get this understood. Let's let the people see what is coming. That it is around the corner. That we are moments away. All right, let's look at this. Like I said, we're almost done. Romans 11. What do we have? Verse 25. Romans 11, verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened unto Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles is come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. You see? Where's he coming? The deliverer is going to be on Zion. On Mount Zion is the deliverer. When does the deliverer come on Zion? At the end of seals. I always remember one of the sisters saying, I just kind of never understood, I thought about it and I couldn't figure it out, and I just let it go, because how do you discern? How has your pastor, how has anybody taught you why and how the Lamb is on Mount Zion with the 144,000 in Revelation chapter 14? Anybody paying attention, that should have been a head scratcher, right? Of course. There's some other great things, man. Even going into this whole thing with covenant. Remember, we were talking to you. I'm not going to really go into it today. I'm going to touch on it just to show you. Remember, we keep saying Acts 14 chapters and then another 14 chapters. You can take this 14, overlay it on this, and it's just two different points of view. So here would be your first 14, right? Sorry, your first, here's your 7. And you see this whole speech going on, an affliction coming. Is it this one here? Or is it, it relates to once again, set them once again. Oh man, there's an awesome one. The deliverer. Yeah, see, it's all this story. You guys should go read it. When you understand how this is speaking in relation to the end times, you'll totally get it. When you see when Moses was now full 40 years old. So when the tribulation begins, the bride has escaped and everything has begun. Jesus is returning as he was, like, say, at the beginning of the 40 days, right? For that portion of time. He's going to leave at the end of those 40. Not everybody's going to understand or realize that it's him. But what will that begin now? A period of time of 7 years. So when that 7 years of seals is done before he returns on Zion, how old would Jesus then be? He would be 40 years old. And you have this story here of Moses and talking about how he's now coming when he is full 40 years. See, you'll find all of these types and shadows in it, but there was specific. Am I in the right one, or was it chapter 8? You'll see all of this conversation, all of this talk take place about covenant. Baptized. I think I'll just have to leave it for another one. It is everywhere. It's covenant this and covenant that. Why? Because Jesus, when he returns on Zion, that is the covenant. He's going to make a covenant at the end of seals to the beginning of trumpets. And when he's cut off after those 3.5 years of trumpets, when he returns at the end of 2.5 more years and defeats Satan and they cast him into the pit and so forth, he will renew that covenant with the nations that he had made earlier. That is Daniel 9. All right, here, look at this. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. You see, here we suddenly have this covenant of circumcision being spoken about in Acts chapter 7. Well, why do you think? Because trumpets now begins. He's making a covenant again with who? With Judah. And it's all about this time. And you'll see it over and over. See, great affliction now coming. What's the great affliction? It's the time of trumpets. What else do we have? And this is the second time Joseph made known to his brother. See, and this is the second time. Well, why? As the type and shadow Joseph was, there's Jesus, right? He came at the beginning of seals. Now he's coming at the end. That's why you see him at the end of the 6th trumpet. Okay, all of these things over and over. Like I said, you'll find that the type and shadow, 40 years with Moses. How old would Jesus then be? Here he would be 40. From when things renewed again, 7 years. You see, it's everywhere, guys. It is everywhere. It's so awesome. Let me see. I don't want to stretch this out. I am finishing up. But I wanted to show this. This is something that just caught my attention when I was in Acts chapter 1. So just as we were showing you all these things taking place in Acts chapter 1 and the wording that was found in Acts chapter 1 in relation to this whole thing that we were just talking about today, and the visitation and his bishopric you'll give to another. I mean, all of these things tied in to the beginning, exactly like we've been teaching. Every chapter related to every chapter that was connected to it. That is this year that we're in right now. The 70th year. You must understand that the truth is we are in the 70th year. Watch this. Let's read Acts chapter 1. This is a little side thing. We're just going to finish on this just for a couple minutes because I find this is something that really caught my attention. 6 and 7, maybe a little bit of 8. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, will thou at this time restore again the kingdom of Israel? Okay. This is interesting, guys, because we've been wondering, this group that's going to remain behind to work this portion of seals, that the world thinks this portion of time is the 144,000, but it's not. The 144,000 has Joseph that stepped in for Ephraim, and they have the Levi who stepped in for Dan. And what people have all been taught is that Dan is the serpent, right? He's the seed of the serpent. But what they've failed to understand, for the most part, is that Dan has two sides, right? Dan is a scorpion and can either become a serpent remaining on its belly or can become an overcomer and be an eagle. All right? That's where we get Priscilla and Aquila. Aquila is the eagle that is helping during the time of seals. Okay? That's what's going on with Aquila in the end time story. So when we see that this portion, we know that it's Dan, a portion of Dan and Ephraim that are working this portion of time during seals. And we've wondered, is it a portion of the church? Is it a portion of the bride that is chosen to remain? Or is it really this group of Israelites, right? We don't know. Nobody really knows, I don't believe. Maybe some do, but overall, in the church, we don't really know who we are. In the sense that, I always remember this kid that had said, the one thing he saw that the Lord had revealed is how many people were so surprised to find out who they were, like who they were a part of. Whether it was this tribe, that tribe. Some who will think they were Jews, they won't be Jews. It'll turn out they were Gentiles. Some who thought they were Gentiles were Israelites, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? And this brings us a little bit closer, I think. You see, they're asking this group now of disciples that has been chosen to work during this time of seals, this beginning of Acts chapter 1, this replaying of the book of Acts, this time of the 40 days to the end of those 40 days. They're asking, are you now going to restore Israel? Okay? And he said unto them, listen to this, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. Whoa, wait a second. See, but you shall receive power after the Holy Ghost comes, okay? So this group, we know they're going to receive Holy Ghost power that's going to come upon these disciples and those that are going to work, those chosen during the time to work during the time of seals, okay? We've talked about this before, but we've never talked about this. It is not for you to know the times or the seasons. Well, wait a second. What do you mean it's not time? It's not for them to know the times or seasons. When we go to 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 1, what does it say? But of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, escape of the bride, destruction comes upon the earth, and the red horse rider begins. That's what that means, by the way. That's the translation to simple English. So, what is this? But of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly. Yet, in Acts chapter 1, this group that are the ones chosen to work during seals will not know it. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, I was just distracted there for a second. Okay, so why is it that this group doesn't know, but the first group was told to know? Because us as the watching bride, we have some of these understandings. We're to be watching and praying and to know these things that are coming. You see, but this group here working, that's going to work, these disciples that are chosen to work during now the time of tribulation, the first 40 days, and that some would probably continue to work through. What does it tell them? It is not for you to know the times or the seasons, but it's only in the Father's power. Do you follow this? For those that have been watching for a while, do you see what's going on? The group of the bride has escaped, right? They've been taken out. But those that Jesus has chosen to remain, they think, just like they did in the past, that is it the time to restore the kingdom to Israel? Like we heard them say earlier. And they're told it's not for them to know the times or the seasons. So our question, which was, are they a portion of the bride remaining, appears to be no. Appears to be these that will be chosen afterwards. After the escape has come, the Lord will reveal himself to them, and they'll think it's the time. But they're told they won't know. Now, why won't they know? Because this group that is working for who? The church. You see, those chosen from this Luke portion of time are working to bring in the Mark portion of time, right? The rest of the church. And so, what do we know? But of that day and hour knows no man. You see, not the angels in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. So those chosen to work from this portion of Luke, they're working during Mark's time, and they're told they won't know the day and the hour, the season and time, because it's not for them to know. Why? Because they're working Mark's portion, the church portion of time, and we are told, but of that day and hour, they don't know. And then what do we know about Mark? We know at the end of Mark, what do we see? This is the group chosen who will be the 144,000. And what do we know about them? They're going to work the portion of Matthew. You see that? So we just got another little glimpse here, another little clue from Acts chapter 1, that this group's a little piece of the understanding that this group doesn't appear to be this group of the bride, let's say within Ministry Revealed. For example, possibly, remember I'm saying possibly, because they're told they won't know the season and time. But those for the escape are told that we would know it and understand it properly, perfectly. And we have an idea. We know this time frame. We know in the 14 years. But these guys are told they won't. Interesting, right? All right, guys. I got to take my son to the Y. I pray this reaches you. I know there's a lot of detail. We were going here and there. But overall, we had that all tied in to what Chuck Missler was talking about. And I'll go into it with more in another video. But we'll leave it at that. We've gone late. With that, guys, I love you. God bless you. Gotta rush, gotta go. Bye for now.